Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War, Warhammer 2, Go Awake Magic gameplay. This time around we are playing as the forces of the Tomb Kings against the Wood Elves, and both factions are pretty far away from home here in Troll Country. So, with the Tomb Kings, a lot of people do consider their matchup against the Wood Elves to be one of the tougher ones. I'm personally not sure that's the case, but regardless, there are definitely some things you gotta watch out for. The Wood Elves, of course, do have a lot of potential to isolate and snipe lords, especially if you bring them on a big monstrous mount that's easy to hit, because of course they can hit you with Brave Anathema. Most of your lords are susceptible to fire, so if they brought Starfire Shafts, they melt you down faster than normal. If they brought Way Watchers, of course Way Watchers still do ridiculous damage, so either way, you definitely have to watch out for those sort of goonings. They also do have a lot of AP anti-large, which is obviously a problem for their Tomb Kings and monsters and all their various constructs, so definitely something you got to watch out for. So either way, here I decided to bring Ark in the Black. Probably the safest Lord pick for the Tomb Kings. I did bring Fate of Buna and Spirit Leech, the standard duo from Lord of Death. Of course, he does have his Curse, he does have My Will Be Done, he does have Liber Mortis for that physical resist, Staff of Nagash to improve power recharge rate, and of course the Tomb Blade of Arkin, which is a great little HP replenishment ability. And as the front line here, we do have 5 units of Tomb Guard, and the Tomb Guard are a very good matchup against the Wood Elves, with solid melee attack, good melee defense, high weapon strength, and bronze and silver shields. They can really tank out any shooting. They'll outtrade Eternal Guard and Dryads very effectively, and they can even trade pretty well with War Dancers and War Dancers Azure Spears and Wildwood Rangers and all those units. Out on the flanks, we do have 2 units of 4 Nehekaran Horsemen. The Nehekaran Horsemen aren't amazing, but they're not a bad cav either. They're not quite on the level of real light cav like Skeleton Horsemen or Dark Riders or something like that. They're closer to say Illyrian Reavers, but they do have bronze shields, 50 armor, and almost 5,000 HP, which is really high for a light cavalry unit. Most light cavalry units are sitting somewhere around 4,000. Obviously, the Sister of the Thorn are a little small of a unit, but still only about 4,000 HP, so definitely a big advantage there to Nehekaran Horsemen. They're just very tanky with raw HP pool. Good weapon strength at 38. Not great charge bonus, but they are mobile, and I have 4 of them, so I can kind of surround and envelop my opponent, crush his backline, and shut it down, prevent it from really harassing my front. I also did bring a Tomb Prince. Tomb Prince is actually kitted out to the max here. You can see he does have the Blade of Setep, which is a debuff to armor and physical resist. Definitely a pretty solid choice there. I think Tomb Strike, which of course buffs his stats and allows him to cause terror. This might not seem too great against the Wood Elves, who have a lot of psychological resist, but if you can break a front line of Eternal Guard, it can be very useful. Cloak of Dunes, of course, and this is actually an interesting one, but it does cause give you stock for 44 seconds. I figured that if I can hide him in with the Nehekaran Horseman and sneak him up to the front line, that could be really useful. And then, of course, we do have the Curse of Jaff, which is just this built-in spell where he does cause Rampage and debuffs enemy melee attack for a little bit when he drops below 50% HP. And otherwise, the Tomb Prince is basically a high elf noble. That's basically what you're looking at. Finally, in the back, in case I ran into Durthu, or one of the big tanky lords, I wanted to have some sort of safety against that. I brought the Sphinx of Usef with fire and magic damage, of course, and good melee stats and anti-large bonus, all that sort of stuff. It won't do well against infantry, but it can tear through large units very quickly, and especially something like Durthu or Treekin or Treeman, which could really threaten my line here. I don't have too much anti-large options. This could really kind of tip the scale there. Now for my opponent, he decided to go very conventional and just kind of engage me in a straight-up fight, which is definitely something the Wood Elves can do. Definitely not a bad idea. You can see already Starfire Shafts are like raining down, looking a little less vivid than usual, but you can see the Starfire Shafts going off. 4 units of Eternal Guard with shields here in the front, a Glady with Prey of Anathema and Arrow of Kurnus, Spellslinger of Life with Regrowth, Power Stone, the Earthblood, and Stone Skin. 2 units of Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts, as mentioned, and of course these guys with their fire arrows can potentially snipe Arkin, who is susceptible to fire. And then in the back, my opponent does have 2 units of Wildwood Rangers, Sisters of the Thorn, and 2 War Dancers Azure Spears. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Wildwood Rangers in this matchup. I don't think they're a good choice. I think you're better off bringing War Dancers, the vanilla variant. Wildwood Rangers do bring AP if you have to fight constructs, but otherwise not too much. And over on this flank, my opponent does have Wild Riders plowing into my Nehekaran Horsemen. You can see they're outtrading him very, very heavily, because of course my opponent did cast Flesh to Stone, giving them a much greater tankiness than usual, and then Nehekaran Horsemen are just straight up inferior normally. I didn't quite get a surround here either, so my opponent is getting good traded, but I do get the Liber Mortis off, so these guys will become tankier themselves. And I'm trying desperately to get into range and to cast a Fate of Buna, but unfortunately you can see Pain of Anathema does go down, it's locking him down. In the meantime, front lines are going to clash. You can see the Tomb Guard will outtrade the Eternal Guard pretty decisively, though it might take a while. You can see it Arc in the Black getting sniped down. Over here, the Wild Riders still have that earth stone skin going down, sort of that flesh to stone lasting. It's got a very long effect, and I kind of underestimated that. But you can see they've dropped about 1,000 HP. I've lost about 2,000 on one unit and about 1,000 on the other, so definitely not trading efficiently here, but I don't really care. I'm going to get Arcan in there, cast the Fate of Buna, and really melt those guys down. In the meantime, the Sphinx of Usef has plowed through the front. You can see the Nehekarn horsemen on the flank jumping in, chasing after those Sisters of the Thorn and plowing into this backline of War Dancers and archers and stuff like that. And over here, the Tomb Prince is in the backline, helping out these troops in the front against the Eternal Guard. Over here, you can see the Wild Riders are going to get annihilated by the Fate of Buna. This is pretty significant because Wild Riders can chew through the infantry of the Tomb Kings pretty effectively. And with a small map like this, I can easily chase them off the map, get rid of them, and not have to deal with them again. Despite the regrowth going down, they're just not going to be able to tank through that. So I also managed to squander a lot of my opponent's healing resources or Winds of Magic resources here because he did use regrowth there. So basically we had about an even trade in magic, but he lost his Wild Riders, whereas I still have 2 units of Nehekarn horsemen, one of which is rather healthy. Frontline fight still going well. You can see I did cast the Blade of Setep on these Eternal Guard to debuff them. The Tomb Prince here is being healed. I did get a Tomb Blade of Arcan here just to get the heal. You can see these Eternal Guard are breaking. They're terrified because of the proximity to the Sphinx of Usef, which is just rampaging around with these Nehekarn horsemen, trying to disrupt the backline and just help wherever it can. While the Tomb Guard slowly but surely just chew their way through these annoying Eternal Guard. Now the War Dancers Azure Spears are plowing in. They'll trade rather well against the Tomb Guard. I do believe they will, thanks to their high melee defense. They might not trade as well as I think, because the AP is kind of wasted on the Tomb Kings, but they'll have to give them a fight. In the meantime, the Nehekarn horsemen over here are crumbling. I'm pulling the healthy unit back into the fray. I did manage to pull some of the units out, but I lost some others. And in the pits here, you can see Arcan kind of overextended. I did get a Libra Mortis off, and I'm now casting a Fate of Buna on these Wild Rangers, trying to get them dead. The Wild Rangers don't have the best of melee defense at only 39, so against the Tomb Guard, it's about a 50-50 chance to hit. Maybe a little less with Arcan in there buffing them, but nonetheless, Fate of Buna will melt this unit of Wild Rangers off. You can see the crazy animation. Oh my goodness, getting thrown around. Nehekarn horsemen here slugging it out with the Glade Guard. Now, Nehekarn horsemen aren't too good in melee, or aren't the greatest in melee like we discussed before. And the Glade Guard do have passable melee stats, so they will definitely tie these guys down for a little bit, and definitely won't fold over like a wet rag too quickly, especially not with the Sisters of the Thorn in there. Nonetheless, the Tomb Guard has pincered them. They are going to wipe out these Eternal Guard and be able to plow through and pincer them. Over the Tomb Prince is struggling a little bit, but with Tomb Strike he will be able to do some damage. He's going to whittle down these Sisters of the Thorn. You can see they're actually getting terrified. War Dancers obviously will never get terrified. They've got immunity to psychology, but against the Tomb Guard they won't do too hot, and I can always send my Nehekarn horsemen off to chase after these annoying archers, get them off the field, and get rid of my opponent's power that way. Now, unfortunately, Arc in the Black is really rather beaten up. And I haven't actually gotten all 3 of my casts of Realm of Souls yet, despite having a pretty solid infantry front line, despite the fact that my cavalry's kind of been getting annihilated. I'm just not getting it. My opponent's been focusing on Arc in the Black and trying to wipe them out. You can see over here, I do debuff the Wild Rangers with Blade of Setep. Get a charge in with the Sphinx, trying to whittle him down, get rid of him. Oh my goodness, the poor guy got impaled and he's getting like punted around. It's a crazy animation. But yeah, you can see Tomb Prince over here slugging it out with these Eternal Guard, with the War Dancers. The War Dancers will drag the guy into the muck pretty decisively. He doesn't have the best of melee stats, honestly. They're decent, but that's about all you can say. In the meantime, though, I do get a Libra Mortis off, pushing these Tomb Guard in just to help against the Eternal Guard. The poor Sister of the Thorn getting slaughtered here, getting pursued by the Sphinx of Usef. You can see the Tomb Prince, I do get the Curse of Jaffa off just to keep these guys in place. I want to get rid of these War Dancers all to man if I can. And my opponent at this point is in a rough spot. Over here, the Nehekarn horsemen are getting slaughtered by the Spellslinger of Life, but these Wild Rangers are in a very tough spot. My Nehekarn horsemen over here running down these Blade Guard, getting them off the field. So my opponent's not going to have much fire support left, except for these few Sisters of the Thorn, and over here is Glady, who's using another Arrow of Kurnus to try to whittle Arcan down. But he doesn't have much archery support at this point, and obviously with Arcan being in the middle of this blob of skeletons, he's going to be very hard to hit. Though obviously my opponent just try to isolate him a little bit with the Prey of Anathrema, and actually the Glade Guards start peppering him down again. So still trying to get that decapitation strike to the bitter end here. And Earthblood goes down to try to heal these War Dancers, but it's just not going to help. They're trapped in the pits here. They're going to get slaughtered, despite the Sisters of the Thorn, despite the sacrifice, this valiant effort. It's not going to happen. And these SRI Spears didn't commit into the fray, so they're kind of sitting around here doing nothing. I'm not entirely sure why. But either way, my opponent's army is going to simply fall apart at this point, though there is still a minute to go on the clock. You can see these Glade Guard got wiped out. Over here, the Wild Rangers getting pursued by these very angry Tomb Guard. And as we kind of speed through, you can see a little bit, not really much Benny Hill action. My opponent was trying to kind of kite me out a little bit with the spell slinger, get some hits in here and there, but she will get surrounded by Tomb Guard, hit with a Spear Leech, and at that point the army will rout. So definitely rather, perhaps not the most decisive. Several units of Necron Horsemen lost. Of course, the Tomb Guard all bludgeoned pretty badly. Arkan almost died, so did the Tomb Prince, and even the Sphinx of Usef took a nasty beating, really giving a testament to that powerful anti-large that Wood Elves can put on the field. But nonetheless, the Tomb Guard front line really prevailed. They crushed those Eternal Guard underfoot, really stomped them. The Necron Horsemen did their job in shutting down the Wild Riders and shutting down the Glade Guard, which was really kind of the key, some of the key components my opponent was relying on to succeed. And after that point, Core of War Dancers and Wild Rangers isn't going to win you a battle, so at that point you can kind of just crush those. And of course, keeping Arkan on foot kept him relatively safe from a lot of that sniping. Even Elves aren't that accurate. And obviously the Glade can chip away at him. He still does have the Tomb Blade of Arkan. He's still rather tanky and rather survivable. And of course, a lot of the time the Tomb Guard will tank shots for him. Obviously this comp does have a few issues. If my opponent brings some serious large, like for example Durthu, backed by some anti-large like these War Dancers, it could be a bit of a problem because, well, the Sphinx of Usef will probably outtrade Durthu in a straight-up fight. The War Dancers with Azrai Spears, if it's locked in combat with him, could be chipping away at him rather quickly, and of course the Wood Elves do have healing, and that could be rather potent. Obviously, I also do have the Tomb Prince for anti-large. Otherwise, this army is really lacking in AP, so if my opponent decided to bring some of the few armored units that the Wood Elves have, I could definitely be in a bit of a pickle. Otherwise, though, I think this composition is definitely rather solid. You've got the flanking, you've got the front line slugging it out. I think that's the key aspect that people miss when they say the Tomb King's matchup is rough against Wood Elves, is that you just have to go very unconventional. You have to focus on infantry spam and on man spam with Necron Horsemen and Tomb Guard, and maybe Skeleton Archers like I've done in some of my previous replays. All of those units I think are much better options against Elves than bringing a bunch of constructs that people kind of rely on in other matchups. My opponent's build, I think, is pretty solid. I don't think Eternal Guard frontline is bad, especially if your opponent brings some Skeleton Chaff. These guys will trade okay. They'll hold them in place. At the same time, they'll slug it out very effectively against. They'll slug it out pretty effectively against, say, Tomb Guard with Halberds. They'll slug it out with. And actually, Tomb Guard with Halberds don't have much better stats than these guys in a straight-up fight. It's just a little bit of an interesting fact, but these guys will trade pretty effectively with Tomb Guard Halberds. They'll trade effectively with all the skeleton troops. And they can really help if your opponent decides to bring a very construct-heavy army. Definitely not a bad choice. Some of the War Dancers with Azrai Spears also good at Moon. Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts, not a bad pick, just because they can chip away at enemy lords and all those sorts of troops. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the Sister of the Thorn in this matchup. Their poke isn't that useful. Their spells are nice, but once again, I wouldn't say they're that useful. They're very expensive. I think you're better off bringing a second unit of Wild Riders. The other questionable choice here, I think, is the Wildwood Rangers. Because Wildwood Rangers are AP. They don't deliver to anti-large, not in this, unless they're in woods. And you don't need AP against the Tomb King infantry, and especially when you've got a front line of this many Eternal Guard backed by War Dancers as Azrai Spears, you really don't need that much armor piercing anti-large. I think you'd be better off bringing, say, 2 units of War Dancers and then having another 400 some points to get maybe a unit of Eternal Guard without shields, and you'd probably get better results out of that. Also, potentially, Branch Wraith can be very useful, just to buff up that front line instead of bringing a Spellslinger of Life. I think those would be my chief criticisms here: the choice of the Sister of the Thorn, the Wildwood Rangers, and Spellslinger of Life instead of, say, Branch Wraith. Though obviously both can be rather effective. I'm a big fan of the Branch Wraith just for the support it can provide to the front line. Regardless, great game to my opponent here, Armed Co-ops. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below to keep up with additional content. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.